So a lot of the stats I'm going to tell you today come from a report that we did last year. So if anyone wants to take a photo of this, I'll put this up again at the end, but this is the URL where you can download our full report. The stats were all based on UK respondents, but I think the stats are they tell a good story around the fact that people are open to playing games online. So it'll be an interesting read. Now, this is something I imagine lots of us can identify with. So our trust in brands is low at the moment. Most of us are kind of becoming so cynical about advertising, and people just are using ad blockers. They don't want to see advertising. So it makes our job as digital marketers so much harder. So a couple of headlines here. We've got The Drum. People's trust in brands faces the biggest dip since the 2008 financial crash. Marketing Week Live, arrogance around brand purpose is making consumers distrust ads. Consumer trust at an all-time low. I could carry on. There were so many of these headlines that I could find. And then we've got the rise of the ad blocker. So these stats show that in the UK we're up to 22%, in Germany up to 32%. Out of interest, who in the room uses an ad blocker? Now, this always amazes me because you're all in digital marketing and yet you're choosing not to see ads because we're all getting fed up with them and we find them intrusive and it's too much. So the consumers that we spoke to, the 2,000 that we interviewed, confirmed this lack of trust. 58% of them said that online ads have little or no influence on their buying behaviour. Now, we know that actually probably if they've seen the advert unconsciously, it will have made some kind of effect and they'll have remembered it. But the fact that they're answering that question saying no, little or no impact, means that they're trying not to be advertised to. We then look at the ages. So when it comes to the young, they're still our biggest opportunity when it comes to ads. So 53% of 16 to 24-year-olds say that online ads do influence their behaviour. But as you'll see, the older you get, the more cynical it appears we are, and therefore it starts to fall down. So the over 45s, only 16% say that they're influenced by online advertising. Consumers are becoming numb to our tactics. So it means that we need to find new ways to make contact and to have an impact on our audience. And brands need to identify these new touch points in the user journey so that we can help have an impact and drive them to do what we want them to do. And for us, building relationships is what will win. That is what's going to cut through this apathy, and that is what will win. So what do I actually mean by gamification? So it's the borrowing of elements of gameplay and then it's putting them into a non-game context. And what we're trying to do is get the same levels of attention in the brain that we would when we're in a state of play. So it can be as simple as using the quiz feature on Instagram stories through to building a huge game. It's anything from there and in between. Now, our research found that consumers are overwhelmingly open to this. 93% of them said it's engaging. And when you compare that to only 58% saying that saying that online ads have no influence, and yet when it comes to a game, they're like, this is engaging, I like this. And respondents actually admitted that it does influence their behaviour as well. So 60% said they would be more likely to buy from a brand if they played a game they enjoyed playing with played a game with that brand. So huge, 60%. And that stat rose to 86% for those that have actually experienced gamification before. So we did make sure that when they were answering the questions, they understood what we meant. But I think it was only about 31% of people had actually experienced gamification from a brand perspective before. And 86% of those said they'd be more likely to buy. So this is why we believe it's the antidote to consumer apathy. Now, we've talked a lot about funnels today. We've seen this in a few different presentations, and this is my take on the consumer funnel, and this is where I believe gamification can fit. So at the top end, the friendship part, where you're first courting, you're dating, it's that early part of a relationship with a brand, and gamification is perfect here. It might be the first reason that someone makes contact with you or is in contact with your brand, or they might just be in those really early stages and they see it on your social media or they see it in an email marketing campaign. And it's perfect because it means that they've got a chance to have a non-salesy relationship with you. They can play something that they're having fun with, and then they're suddenly like, well, I'm on the same level as this brand. I like this brand. I like what they're doing. So it's great in that phase. You then have the phase where you're kind of offering support and advice, and you're trying to show them that you're a good brand to be trusted and that you know what you're talking about and what you're selling. So this again is a great place that you can fit gamification. And gamification can be completely, purely fun and nothing to do with your product, but it also could be educational around what your product does. Ideally not salesy and too much about your actual product, but maybe more about the challenges that your consumers face. So for example, one of our clients specialize in email encryption, and we're currently building a game for them that helps people. So they'll you're in the game, you'll get confronted with an email and you have to decide if it's real or not real. And then depending on whether you're right or wrong, it's going to tell you what you should have looked out for. So it's educating them around how to not get a dodgy email and go and send a load of money to somewhere that you didn't mean to. It fits nicely into that offering support stage, but it's not too salesy. It's not saying you have to have our product. It's saying actually we can help educate you to be better even without our product. Then you have sealing the deal. You should never have a game at the point that you're trying to seal the deal. At the point that you're trying to get them to buy, we had a brand once come to us and they were like, we want to gamify our checkout. And I was like, no. No one is gamifying a checkout. Let them just check out. Make it easy. But then you've got the keeping in touch. So at this point, they're already a customer. And what a great way to keep in touch. We all get bombarded with these emails of, buy our stuff, buy, look, new product, buy. Actually, an email that's, look, we created this cool game, and because we understand our audience, we know that you're going to love this because you're on our wavelength too, play our game. And then they're going to get involved. And then the advocacy part, so where you want them to tell their friends about you, again, it's perfect, because what great way. People are going to share it. They're so much more likely to share that than they are something product related or something sales related. It's just something fun. So why gamify? So consumers are more emotional than rational, and it's a fact. So I love this quote from Jill Bolt here. So we live in a world where we're taught from the start that we're thinking creatures that feel. But the truth is we're actually feeling creatures that think. And most of our decisions, and from our joining the lab group, I've been learning more and more about this. Like every decision we make is emotional. The rational bit comes afterwards. It's only if I say to you, oh, why did you choose that tie today, Reggie? Afterwards, you backfill the story, because just emotionally, there was a reason that you picked that tie out. And it just happened, and you don't know necessarily why you make these decisions. So, and it's a huge untapped opportunity. So as I said, of the 2,000 people we spoke to, only 31% had experienced gamification from a brand before, and only 16% more than once. So this isn't something that lots of brands are doing at the moment, which means it's a great opportunity for you and your brand. And then remember that stat, 86% of those said they'd be more likely to buy. So what a great buying signal. Now, the young are also our biggest opportunity here. So they are our biggest opportunity when it comes to ads, but they're also our biggest opportunity when it comes to gamification. So these stats, so the 91% said they'd be open to playing games with brands. 84% said they'd buy from a brand that they enjoyed playing a game with. And 61% said they'd keep buying from that brand. So some really convincing stats from the kind of 16 to 24 age group. They also ranked online games as their number one most memorable activity. They put it ahead of online and traditional advertising, but they also put it against live games and live experiences. So this is kind of our future customer. They love this. They're really engaged in it. And actually, you can touch so many people with a game. It's such a great opportunity and so much cheaper than putting on a live experience for your audience and trying to get them all there. Now, people might think stereotypically that men would be more interested in gamification than women, but actually we found the opposite. So 76% of women versus 62% of men. So still high stats on both sides. So there isn't really a preference. But if you're a female-orientated brand, don't be thinking stereotypically it's all about men, because women are engaged. But let me take you back to the start. Why am I even here talking about gamification? So we're a digital marketing agency. We design and build. We do SEO. We do paid search. And our design team were chatting to our SEO team a couple of years ago. And they were like, why don't we make a game and see, because you're always going on about wanting to build links. Couldn't we build links using a game? And we were all like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's see what we can do with that. So it was August 2017 that we launched it. And we launched a game called Find 50 Clubs. Now, this is the URL if anyone wants to go and play it. It's really tough and it's really addictive, and I'll put this up again at the end. But this is basically what the game looked like. which looks a bit crazy. So at this point, you've gone into the game screen and you're in. And hidden in this scene are 50 clues to football clubs, mainly UK-based football clubs, but there's a couple of European ones thrown in there. But there's say what you see clues, so it's kind of like catchphrase clues. So for example, have I got a laser on here? I don't know if I have. The swimming pool at the front has got black water in it, so that is Blackpool. So it's one of those games that the easiest way to play it is with someone else, and you just start saying words out loud, and you're like, Bruce Lee, what's he doing there? He's on fire. Bruce Lee on fire. What does this mean? And eventually someone goes, oh, he's burning. And then you're like, Burnley, we're there. It's Burnley. And you've probably never heard of Burnley. Really tiny little place up north. But it's just so much fun. And it was addictive. And we didn't really know what to expect from this. So we kind of built the platform for it because we were like, this could be cool. And it was more complicated than we expected it to be, thinking about mobile devices and the pinch and zoom and being able to kind of tag the clues to the right pictures. But it was really successful. So why was it successful? We had some really good outreach, which you'd hope as an SEO agency we'd know what we were doing. So we came up with some really kind of visual-based outreach. So ahead of the game launching, this was one of the graphics that we sent out to journalists. Now, we'd done our research. We found journalists that were really into sport, that had shared quizzes and things like that before. And they got this in their inbox, so they could see the top corner, and we told them there's 9 clues in there. But we also spoke their language, so it was kind of, you've impressed the scouts, and you've made the Find 50 football club trials. So we knew that this was language that they'd love, and they'd be like, this is really interesting. And they knew they had 9 clues to find, so they could have a play with it, and they could come back to us. And this got their attention. We then started tweeting it out as well, so using Twitter, great way for finding journalists. And again, using their language, we told them it was possibly more addictive than Football Manager, which is definitely going to get someone's attention. And then this was kind of the outreach that went on through Facebook messages as well. And before we'd even launched, we had Sport Bible interested, and they were like, can we help you launch it? Can we put it out there? And we were like, yeah, of course you can, definitely. And they gave us a testimonial to put on the homepage as well, which was brilliant. We did a BuzzFeed game as well, so this was again still teasing it out. So this was before it had even launched. So teasing it out, we had 10 clues on BuzzFeed, and we were able to share that and start getting people interested. We then also had social media graphics doing a countdown. But actually what was interesting with this is we didn't really have an audience for this. So if you think we did this as us as an agency, and all my agency friends out there, none of us have huge followings. Like, we've got our friends and family and clients, but you wouldn't expect us to have huge followings. We're not a brand as such. We're a brand in the agency world. So this for us was starting from ground zero almost. We didn't have an audience for it. So at first we weren't getting a huge amount of interaction until the Sport Bible post and when we launched. Now, these were just some of the links that we got. So Sport Bible, as I've mentioned, Planet Football still sends us traffic every single day without fail over 2 years later, which was huge. Who Ate All the Pies, which I'd never even heard of before, but again, that still sends us traffic now. Betfair became a client off the back of this. We've since done about 6 or 7 games for them. So they got so addicted, it was going around their office. It was just, and this was just kind of the top brands that had followed and shared it. Now, these were the stats after the first 5 weeks. So remembering this was from 0. So we had 54,000 unique users. I mean, that was huge for us, little old agency in Kent, in Maidstone, and like 54,000 users are playing our game. And the bit that we hadn't prepared ourselves for was like the social media side of it. And I'll show you some of that in a minute. It was huge, the amount of people that were tweeting us and wanting to get involved. We reached 159 countries around the world. It wasn't that popular in Sweden. We checked the stats. It was about 300 people. So let's get that up after today. See if you enjoy it. But I think some of the other things were over 5,000 people created accounts. So that meant that over 5,000 people gave us their data. So suddenly we've got links coming, which was wonderful, but we were getting data, and we were like, well, this is really good, actually. We're killing 2 birds here with just the 1 stone. We're getting social as well. So there were lots of benefits coming out of it. Now, these are the stats after the first 2 months. So we were at over 100,000. And 2 years later, we're at over 140,000 visits of people coming back to the game. And do you know what? We've got Lead Forensics covers this page, so we can see the businesses that go on it. And you can see at the weekend, definitely businesses that are like call centres in England, like banks and stuff. You'll see tons of traffic coming from them where they're just obviously not got much work to do and they're Googling it and finding it and playing the game. And yeah, we had over 100 links, which was huge. Over 10,000 people signed up giving us their data. So it was really great. And it was at a time as well that in England GDPR was happening. So there was all changes in data and privacy. And actually people were still openly giving us their data because they were like, I love this game. You can definitely email me again if you're going to send me this kind of content. So what made it so good? It was the right demographic. So I think one of the things to ask yourselves after today is my audience the right demographic for this? Would they be interested? And then you can start to go and have conversations and see if you think it's going to be something for them. But we knew football fans, they love a quiz. They love to try and prove they know more than their mate does. It just taps into all the things that they love. And it was addictive. There were 50 clues in there, so you couldn't do it in one sitting, really, because you'd get to a point and you're like, I need to walk away from this and I'll come back later, which was perfect because that meant people wanted to create an account because they wanted to save their progress so they could come back later. It was challenging, so it wasn't too easy. There were some in there that once you're on a roll, like there's a few you'll get quite quickly and you're like, yeah, I've got this. And then you go back to, I have no idea now, I'm out. But it was addictive because you're like, well, I got those ones. I must be able to do it. The length of games, so having that long game helped with the sign-ups and helped keep people engaged. The outreach strategy, so you do have to have planned that properly and you do have to think. We launched it in the August, which was just as the Premier League was about to start. So football was back in the news as a topic, so we were able to kind of hook onto that. There was not a whiff of a sales message. Now, we were really lucky because there was absolutely no reason for us to try and sell from this, other than actually we did end up selling games off the back of it. But there was just no sales message. And that is really important, I think, if you're trying to do a game that you want links from. Journalists aren't going to put a link to your game that just sells your product. It's not going to be something they're interested in. And people aren't going to share it with their friends. They're going to be like, oh, well, that was a bit rubbish because I just feel like I'm being sold to. So really important that there's not a whiff of a sales message. We created a community effect, and this was one of the things I loved about the social side of it. So we kind of had a few of us that all had Twitter set up on our phones thinking if it gets a bit busy. And it got busier than we could have ever expected, like especially in the evenings. And we're all like, I want to go to bed now, but the people are still tweeting. But then it got to the point, like a couple of days in, I'd get the notification, I'd load up Twitter, I'd be about to respond, and I'd be like, hold on a minute, someone in the community's already responded. And not only had they responded, but they'd followed our way of responding. They didn't just tell people, oh, this is the answer. They kind of went and gave them another clue, and they guided them along. And I was like, you're doing my job for me. This is amazing. But it really created that community around the game. The forums were amazing. Now, to say the word forum in an SEO talk is normally like, oh, we don't go there. We're not getting links from forums. But we did get a lot of links from forums. But it was okay. They were really genuine forums. And it was people were talking about it and they were creating threads on it. And it was just awesome. And then the social conversation. So we've put some of our favourites up here. Bottom left is my absolute favourite, Dominic. He said, of course, I'm thinking of putting this on my CV. I'm so proud of this achievement. I mean, we had wives messaging saying, my husband can't go to sleep. And then she'd message going, yes, he's now going to sleep. This is wonderful. And it was just brilliant. It was fun and people were enjoying it and it created a buzz. So how do you get it right? It's about the right type of game. Now, from the research that we did, knowledge-based and puzzle came out on top as the types of games people like. So in that 53% of other were things like hand-eye coordination, like in Google when you've lost the internet on Chrome and you can do the little dinosaur that jumps over thing. Those kind of games people don't love that much. Like if you've lost the internet, maybe you'll play it, but you're not really enjoying it. It's kind of not that fun. Or like story-based games or chance-based games where you're spinning a wheel. People aren't that engaged with that unless there's a really good prize, but then they're not going to remember it and they won't have necessarily have had fun with your brand. So it needs to challenge the brain. People like to test their knowledge out. This also, so I popped this one in here just because this is a personality quiz that we created recently for journalists. So any journalists in the room or anyone that knows journalists, send them along to this. So this is through our connection with Lab. We've built a personality quiz that's just got, 20 questions in there. And then you get given a personality, a journalist personality, and what's your style. And it's based on kind of Myers-Briggs psychology, and really nice little tool. But the reason I put it in here is this is a game where you learn something about yourself as a motivation. And so far, our conversion rate of people that have gone to this, and we have been very select, and it's not been out to the masses, we have really targeted journalists, but the conversion rate on this page has been 60%. It's just insane. But it's because people love to learn something about themselves. So actually, it's another idea when it comes to a game. If you can teach people something about themselves, then they're likely to like it. So it's another thing to think of. I've also popped this one in here because Christmas is coming up. I feel like I'm the second person to have mentioned Christmas today. But we create digital advent calendars, and we did this one last year, which was Christmas movies, and we used our kind of say what you see theme clues behind each door, and it was brilliant. You could skip ahead and do the whole month at once, or you could do it like an advent calendar and go in every day. And we had clients that literally religiously wouldn't start their day at work until they'd gone in and they'd done the door together, and like Monday was their best day because you had 3 that you could do, and it was just so much fun. And so thinking about, like, can you gamify Christmas marketing? Is there a way making people think they remember things more? So games need to be part of an integrated digital strategy, though. The worst thing I can ever hear is, oh, my boss loves a game, it would be really good to do a game. Or no, or we need a game. You don't need a game. It's like when people say, oh, we need an app. You don't need an app. Let's talk about that. We don't need to go there. So it needs to be part of an integrated strategy. It needs to be thought about. And so many brands just throw money away at games that kind of fall flat. And it tends to either be that it was overselling, or they just haven't really thought about it and their audience. I've been into brands, like if I'm going into a brand to talk about a game, the first thing I do is Google brand name game and see what's out there. And I went into a big clothing store in the UK, and I was like, oh, so we saw the game you did a few years ago. How did it go? And they were like, oh, I didn't even know we did that game. And it's kind of buried on their website, still there. These guys are in the SEO department and they don't even know it exists. And they probably spent a load of money on it. And also, I think the off-the-shelf games is another one to just be aware of. If it's just off the shelf and it's something that you can just put your logo on, it's probably going to be less relevant to your audience. It's not something that you've really thought about. So just be wary of just, oh, we'll just get any game because this will work. It's really tailoring it. So the do's, I've probably told you some of these already, but we'll go over them. So consider your audience. So make sure you've thought about it and talk to some of your customers and potential customers. See if it's something they would engage with. Do your competitor research. So same as I do if I'm going for a pitch, put your competitor name in and the word game and have a look. What have they got out there? And if they have got games, go back in their social feeds to whenever you can find they launched that game and see what kind of engagement they got, what the feedback was. Conduct research and tests. Now, this is more around the idea. So, for example, our Find 50 ones, they can be quite difficult. So when we start creating them, before we've actually built the game, we'll go and test some of the ideas for clues with audiences to see, do we think it will work or not? Think about motivation. Do they need a motivation? Is there a carrot being dangled? Is there a prize? Is it just the glory? So actually what was interesting with our game was we had a prize of, I think it was £100 JD Sports voucher. And when I told the person that they'd won, they were like, oh, I didn't even know there was a prize. They didn't need a prize. The prize was playing it. They loved it that much. So try and work out if you need that motivation. Make it competitive. Can you have a leaderboard? That kind of thing. Consider achievements. How can you be telling them they're doing well as they're going along and kind of encouraging them to keep going? So we built in email marketing. If they played the game but didn't complete it and they left but they'd signed up, we'd send them a nudge the next day and say, you're doing so well. And it would be in their language or kind of football language to push them along. Think about how you're going to track success. You might want to talk to Jill, get analytics in mind. Can we tag everything up? What can we even tag up wrong answers? Because that can give you a spin-off PR story of, did you know 70% of the UK population didn't know this answer or whatever it may be. So tag everything up because you want to know, how am I going to measure this? Consider influencers, and they might be part of your research phase. Talk to them. Do you think this is something you'd share? Do you think our shared audiences would like this? And can you get them on board? But don't hang all of your goals on just one thing. And I think that's the beauty of it, because it can deliver so much from links for an SEO point of view, for data capture, all of these different bits, the social side of it. Make sure that you've kind of got KPIs around all of that and you're not just going at it for one thing. Sense check with journalists. So if links are going to be important, talk to them before you've built it. Would you cover this? What would you need to cover this? Does it need some research to go with it? Is it that this company is releasing this off the back of some data and then they've created this game? Or is there something happening in the news that we can hook onto, like we did with the Premiership? Consider if it is link worthy as well. Do you need an embeddable version? So we actually, for Sport Bible, we gave them an embeddable that they could put in and they still linked back to us as well. And make sure you think about all devices. So even our Find 50 game is okay on mobile, but it's not perfect. But I think that's kind of the problem with the game, in that it needs a bigger screen because there's such a big scene there. So it works as best it can, but make sure you're thinking about the devices, because people will be playing this on mobile devices. Think about a series of games, especially if you're building something bespoke. If you can plan in that actually I'm paying for this, but I'm going to roll out 3 games, and when you divide that budget by 3, it's much more cost effective than just the one. You can take the learnings from each game into the next one. And then the don'ts. Don't make it sales focused. Do not make it too complicated. There's a fine balance there. And don't data capture too early. Let them in, let them play, and the data capture comes afterwards. Definitely that's not up front. What can you expect to achieve? So it's that data capture, it's the engagement, it's that moment with your audience that's not about sales, it's about having fun and them having a kind of shared moment with your brand, enjoying themselves. The increased social following, so we didn't give out any clues unless they followed us on social first. The PR side of it, the links, the traffic, thinking about what can I do to retarget that traffic. Insight into your audience. Can you plot something into your game that means you're learning something about them that then you can use at a later date? If it's a quiz, could it be that some of the questions, I don't know, you're a fashion brand and some of the questions are about influencers, and I'd get all the questions wrong, therefore you know I'm not influenced by celebrities. So put me in a bucket that doesn't ever get email marketing about what some celebrity wore, tell me other stuff. So can we do that? And then it's the chance to change the narrative, to talk about something different. And it's just that awesome experience. Longevity as well. 2 years later, people still play our game. Can you put it in your reception on an iPad? Can you use it at events? All those different things. And then what next? Think about the funnel. Think where it fits. Think about email journey planning. What can you do off the back of it when you've got their data? Think about retargeting. And then just remember there's varying levels of success. So we've done some games, like it doesn't have to be 150,000 people. We did this for Betfair, and I think we only had 3,000 or 4,000 people play it, but it was a specific horse racing game and it's a very niche audience. So they were really happy with those results. So just because I talked about 150,000, that's not your benchmark. Benchmark what you think's right for your audience. Can it go wrong? It can. Don't be too niche, too hard, or don't spend too much money on it. Get that balance right, and make sure you get the outreach part right. Have a hook. Don't miss it. Don't miss the hook if you're not ready with the tech to get it out there. And that's me done. So any questions we can do in a moment. If these are just some other games, the slides and the report are both on those 2 links. So if you want to download those, take a photo of that and grab them. And thank you ever so much.